Hey everyone, thanks for joining us. We're really excited for tonight. We're gonna start soon. Look at Sharpe. Fliptronic, you should go live as soon as we're wrapping up so we can raid you. Maybe we can watch y'all play some Simpsons. Hello Mango Slice, welcome. Lake Erie Pinball, welcome. We'll start the stream as soon as all of Backbox Pinball Podcast gets here. Hey, Top 10 Head, thanks for popping in. And I must say, his mustache is looking beautiful as ever. Hello, Jim Mitchell. Hello, everybody, and hello, James, and welcome to episode 4 of season 2 of the Big Picture Pinball Show. How's it going?
I am good. Good to see you. We have a very exciting show today. We have one of our legends of pinball, and we have all kinds of exciting news. Roger Sharpe is here. Yes. He's the executive director of Pinball, the Man Who Saved the Game, which is a feature film coming out based on his life. It's not a documentary. No, it is a narrative, and we want to make sure we know that. I think we spoke last week about, or 2 weeks ago when we were on, we were setting up the show, and we said, no, it's this cool documentary about his life. It is not. They actually have actors and real people in it and real stories and a real wonderful cast. And we're going to learn all about the latest happenings in this wonderful thing coming out soon. So it's almost not it's in production. So we'll hear the behind the scenes, I hope.
Sure. And to preface and give y'all a little bit more insight on the film, well, first you can click the link in the chat. They do have a landing page website where you can drop in your email address, and as soon as they start getting news for the movie, we will be emailed, which is exciting. I definitely put my email in there, so put yours too. And a friend of the show, Carrie Hardy, made a fun fan-made trailer when he heard about the initial release about this movie, I believe in last October. Wow. I don't even remember where it came up, but we all caught wind that this movie was being made. I think it was an official MPI press release. And so Carrie just kind of took the little bits and pieces and created a trailer. So figured, why not play Carrie's trailer since we don't have any other content from the actual movie yet? And then we'll get into talking with Roger about everything that has to do with the movie.
And Carrie got me. I was doing the research. I was like, yeah, they have a trailer. It's right here. You'll see it. You'll see how professional it looks. He even has the intro titles from a big movie company, and you're like, oh wow, this looks great. So
I was like, it's not.
It wasn't even the right trailer. It was just it was a fan trailer. So, but very well done. And we'll check it out, and we'll come back around, and we'll see you guys on the other side. And we'll introduce you to Roger, and we'll see what he thinks about that trailer.
Sounds good. All right, let us go.
State your name for the record, please.
My name is Roger Sharpe.
So, who is paying for you to sit here and to testify?
No one. Nobody's paying for anything. I think the biggest hurdle for most people is that they think that the ball is not controllable.
And you're going in a certain line of action when the ball is down to the flipper. That is scary.
The idea of it being totally random takes away the fact that you can actually accomplish something that you've never accomplished before.
I knew that at some point I was going to be asked to go over there and play that game. Pinball was based on skill, not on chance.
Nice. All right, there he is, the legendary Roger Sharpe. Thank you so much for joining us today. Nice.
It is my pleasure.
All right, there he is.
Thank you.
All right. I'm speechless. Just having you on the screen with us.
And I'm trying to be, because I know my reputation. I know my reputation precedes me in terms of how long-winded I am, so I'm trying to be better.
No, we love your storytelling, and that's why we brought you on to the show. So everyone, exactly, Dr. Curly Tech. So we have a lot of people in the chat. We want to let you all know that you can ask questions to Roger too regarding the movie or anything you like. That try to keep it relevant. And at the end of the show, we will do a Q&A, which I will read out your questions to Roger and get them answered. And everyone who asks a question, you're going to be entered into our live stream giveaway. And tonight we are giving away one of John Chad's new graphic history of the silver ball book that you can see that little Roger Sharpe down there at the bottom. He played a big role in helping John get all the right facts for that.
Yeah, no,
right?
It was a wonderful wonderful book, and very, very flattered and humbled by John reaching out and asking for my guidance going through his manuscripts and throughout the process. So it was kind of cool.
That's
and by the
amazing.
way, to Carrie, great trailer. I'm sure
yeah,
that,
what you think?
maybe MPI will be inspired.
He might get a cease and desist.
Now that everybody knows about it.
When you guys shared it with me, because I'd never seen it, I marveled at the fact that that's actually my voice that he pieced together. So I give him kudos for taking the time to go through everything, because I wouldn't have the patience or the diligence to actually do that. So hats off to him.
There's Roger, you have had such a long career, both as a writer as well as a pinball enthusiast. You've been well documented. So there's a lot of footage out there that people can pick and pull from. And it's nice to think that you have had this opportunity to be to have a feature film written about you and your life. Can you tell us a little bit about how that evolved, how they found you, how they decided that was a good story to tell?
Sure. It goes back to February of 2020.
Okay.
And very creative, talented, wonderful people, the Braggs, Meredith and Austin, but Meredith sent me an email just saying that he happened upon some research. I'm actually looking at the email because I had it. I have, here, wait one sec. Don't mind me being out of frame and out of character. I found some research. For this.
Wow.
This is my partial folder from the last 2 years.
Are those the scripts?
Those are scripts. Those are beat sheets. Those are lots of stuff. But so he reached out. He read an article about the New York City band, did some research, and found that I was involved. And part of the email was whether or not I would be interested in, he was considering maybe a documentary. And I was like, okay, I've done a few of those, as you guys know. And has anybody ever approached you about a feature film? And it's like, no. So that was the starting point. And we wound up communicating, I guess, a couple of days later for a first Zoom get-together introductory call, and realized that they were actually serious about wanting to do this, introduced me to the folks at MPI, and the rest, as they say, kind of took off from there. I mean, I was dumbfounded. You know, I've spoken about this a lot, whether it's seminars and maybe sometimes in documentaries or anything else, but I've joked, but I'm also serious about it, that, you know, I think of myself as a historical footnote. And I never knew that the impact that I had would be as enduring as it has been. You know, I've tended to joke that, you know, my best, people know me best as being the father of Zach and Josh. And, you know, it's,
that's a pretty good legacy right there. What are you talking about? That's enough for a lot of people.
More than that.
Yeah.
So the fact that I've gone on for as long as I have and have had the I guess the influence and the impact has been both gratifying as well as surprising. So when the whole situation came about to consider a film, it was okay, maybe. We'll see if I can wrap my head around this. I mean, look, everybody has vanity and ego. I tend to try to sublimate mine as best as I can. But it was interesting.
Now, tell us a little bit about the process of what they selected from your story to then put on screen. Obviously, I haven't seen the film yet. No one has. It's in production. I guess they finished the shooting of it, so they're editing, they're in post, right?
It's in post. It's in the final stages. I know that they're piecing things together right now as we speak. I know that it has been submitted to a couple of film festivals, waiting to hear what that outcome is off of a director's cut.
Nice.
And we'll see from there. And as you mentioned as well in the opening, I think the surprise for a lot of people in the pinball community is that no, it's not a documentary. It's actually a movie with an incredible cast, and we can get into that at some point in terms of who's portraying me, both young as well as old.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about that, because this is a really great cast. Obviously, the Bang Brothers are award-winning as well, which is a good call for a lot of things. And then we mentioned MPI. That's the Moving Picture Institute. So
it's
a lot of
production company and an incubator for young talent and what have you. Have won numerous awards. They have many benefactors, if you will, that support their efforts. It's been around, I think, and you probably have more details than I do off the top of my head, for in excess of about 20 years.
Yeah.
It's been around for a while.
So they're supporting Meredith and Austin with their award-winning short, A Piece of Cake, which I highly recommend. People see that. It's a short little movie, but it is wonderful, and it gives you a sense of just their humor, some of their approach to things in a particular way. And in that particular instance, without giving details away of that short film, it's based on actually a true story, which I found amazing. And when you watch the movie, at the end, you will realize how amazing that was. And it's like, God, these guys just pick things out of wherever and create their magic. But anyway, going back to
That's awesome.
The casting,
this film too. Your film about your life has a sense of humor to it as well, because I've seen it in a couple places saying that it's a docudrama, but that it's a comedic piece. Is that true?
Yeah, I mean, when I saw the first release that they were working on, it was called The Dramedy, and he's just like, really?
That's great.
I don't know if I view my life that way, but I think that the way that we treated everything going forward, it did make sense in terms of trying to carve out some type of a key word for the movie industry, and you guys know this. How do we categorize this?
Right.
So that was the original intent and approach. So
now your background is as you're a marketing background and a writer for GQ. You have had quite a career beyond just pinball and being a pinball wizard and the Babe Ruth of pinball, as the things online quote you, as well as having a story that they're telling in the show. Did you help with any of tell us a little bit about the process of getting your life into a screenplay, and how much you were participating in that? You are credited as the executive producer for the project. Right. What was sometimes executive producers don't do a lot.
How far back does it go, Roger? Like, is it Roger is born from the womb? And
yeah, exactly.
And then he finds pinball.
Yeah, he was born this little town.
What's kind of the era of the biopic that we get to see?
Right. Yeah, let us know.
I imagine we get to 1976 at some point, but
yeah, probably.
Yes, we do. And, we don't show my silver balls when I was growing up, but it was interesting because it was very much a collaborative effort, and I think that was something that was critical to me. If it's going to be my life, then yes. And there's a process in James and Emoto, I know that you're familiar with this, where they did up, I think initially it was 5 beat sheets. And the 5 beat sheets basically, after we had talked the first couple of times, was potential approaches as to how they wanted to proceed and what some of the key points are. And again, without belaboring it, the calls, which were scheduled for an hour, typically went 3, 4, 5 hours deep into the night. Literally spent hundreds upon hundreds of hours together. We would have gotten together if it hadn't been COVID.
Yeah.
So everything was done on Zoom.
Yeah.
To try to move forward. and I would make my notes. We would talk about what the story was going to be. How far back do we go? Do people really care? And Moto, to your point, do people really care about a young little boy growing up on the south side of Chicago? No, we don't have to go back that far. It doesn't really make sense.
We care because it's you.
Exactly.
I understand. But it was like, there were some things that I thought of as being inconsequential. Obviously, there's key elements in terms of my life and how I came out of nowhere, if you will, for pinball. And again, look, no secret to a lot of people who are familiar with my story, at least on some levels, the motivation for the book was I wanted my own pinball machine. Okay, so that was that. Never growing up with pinball, so I grew up pinball ignorant, being in Chicago. Went to the University of Wisconsin for college, and found myself compelled, and I won't say obsessed because that's like a negative, but really captivated to play pinball. Could not play to save my life, and watch somebody play, a fraternity brother, and that changed everything for me. And then I moved to New York, where pinball is illegal, so I go from ignorance to feast to famine. That's my pinball odyssey.
Wow.
And I think that, in looking at that and trying to craft a story around it, it's like, how did all of this happen? It wasn't something that was a linear course, if you will. And, how was my life shaped by pinball? And conversely, how did I shape pinball based on what my life experience was? So that's really how things were coalesced. And then the bigger issue, so you asked in terms of being an executive producer, I'd like to think that I was really kind of like a co-writer and collaborative effort with Meredith and Austin, because you wind up looking at various drafts, initial scripts off the beat sheets. We're talking, they're taking notes and taping things, and it's like, oh, he has this turn of phrase. Yep. He says it this way. These are the things, yes. These things, I don't think we need to get into that.
Right.
So I think that there was a balancing act where obviously the central part is this story of how this person from the Midwest, and started off in advertising as an award-winning copywriter and account exec, moved into publishing, was the associate editor and then managing editor of GQ, and then lo and behold, out of nowhere, find myself not only being the author and contributor to 12 books, not just pinball, but also having the opportunity to design games and become much more involved and entrenched in the industry, writing for all the trade publications and becoming at times a voice of reason, at other times being overly critical as to the way the industry was doing itself harm, I thought. And then the tipping points being not only the GQ piece in December winter issue of 75, but also the subsequent feature in the New York Times. And then the MAA reaching out, and lo and behold, there I am in a courtroom testifying and playing pinball. So, I mean, it's all of that, but there's much more to, end quotes, my life and my story than just that. So I don't know if that answers the question succinctly enough, but it's kind of like a top line overview. So yes, very, very heavily involved every step of the way, as well as who the casting was going to be.
That's really amazing. And I feel like brings so much confidence to us because, we hold pinball so near and dear to our heart. And anytime you hear like, oh, Hollywood or, just someone's going to showcase pinball, we want to make sure that, they're not making fun of us or poking fun at our awesome community. And just to hear that you have so much involvement in it is like, it's amazing. I think it makes it more excited to see it. Because, we'll do it justice. Like, can you give us any examples of things that you contributed that, we would appreciate? We kind of talked about, I was griping at how, like, some modern day TV shows will have solid state pins, but then they'll have the EM bells and chimes in the background, so little things like that always irks us, and we're like, please get it right.
I have to admit, and the major folks at MPI, Lana, Rob and Nick. I take my hat off to them, and Stacy and Tara, but also to Austin and Meredith. I can't say unequivocally that I had final say, but I will say that I had pretty much final say across the board on a lot of things that I thought was appropriate. One of the major points, and Amoto, you're totally correct, was I'm dealing in an era where there are specific games. And I had a list. I had a group of collaborators, if you will, who provided games, Kevin McCune and Roger Dobby and Davin Terriot and a whole slew of others on the East Coast. I will admit to the world, because we were looking for very specific games, Bank Shot being one that I think everybody understands why. You know, how do I find that in good working order that's fine and everything else? Does anybody have a Planets? An old Williams game that was produced specifically for New York in 1972.
We have a Planets at our studio.
Well, see, there you go. If I would have known, then we could have
Dang it, I know. It was Mark Mandeltort's. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I went, I actually will admit that I signed up on Pinside for $10 in order to send a note out there saying, hi, if anybody has this. And I heard from Davin, who lives in Bridgeport or near Bridgeport, I have one. Yes, thank you. Please, need to borrow it for the shoot. So to all the games that are in the film were literally handpicked.
How many games do you think made the cut for the film? How many games do you think we'll see?
I'm trying to think of the various scenes. You're probably looking at a good 30 machines.
Wow, cool.
Some of them have been duplicated
eras.
From one scene to another, only because it's appropriate to do so. But I was incredibly fortunate. Got some breaks in terms of reaching out because you have to ask for permission. And having been at Williams, Valley, Midway, WMS Gaming and Scientific Games for so long, it was like, hi guys, need you to do me a solid. Reaching out to Steve Young for the Gottlieb games rather than worrying about dealing with either the Sarkeesians or anyone else for that matter. Fortunately, there's somebody that I know at Stern that I could reach out to who heads up marketing.
Who might
have said, hi, what do you think? And by the way, some of the games that I want aren't from recent vintage. They go back to like the early 70s, when there was the takeover. So from Chicago Coin. So it was all of that and being very, very precise and specific, as well as, to Emoto's point, wanting to have the right sounds, the right bells and chimes and all the other good stuff, and just the right setting for everything. So that was imperative to me, because yes, it has always stuck out to me as a sore thumb. When you watch a movie or see something, it's like, really? Seriously? How come that game is being featured in that? I mean, you always want it to be somewhat correct. So if it's going to be Happy Days and he's playing Nip It, that works. Thank you. So again, that was the point. And I cannot thank all of the folks that truly stepped up to provide their machines during the photo shoot. And the fact that the games were such pristine condition. Let's face it. I'm looking at games that are, 40, 50 years old almost. Hi, has it been reworked? How bad or good does it look? So there was that. And then there's actually some things. I was able to make my own, how should I call it? My own Alfred Hitchcock Stan Lee appearance in the movie. So
he made a cameo.
Cameo. So were you also did you also do stunt double stuff too? Did they actually film you playing at all?
I did, as a matter of fact. There are some scenes where there needs to be some precision, and you crouch down. The cameras are around you. Yeah,
that was awesome.
This will reach around their actor, and why did my hands get 50 years older?
Right. So and just like, all right, so where do you want the shot to go?
Nice.
Okay, I can do that. So yeah, there was still some hidden skills from way back when that I was able to call on. to do some of that. And then unfortunately, because I have old man hands, they needed to kind of do some special effects and put some other hands in. But yes.
Did they really? Okay, I said that as a joke, so I apologize.
No.
I was like,
you called it.
Me, I was the first one. It's like, are you really going to show this hand pulling back a plunger? You can't do this. This is young Roger. If it's old Roger, then that's fine.
Gotta take off the wedding ring too. You know.
A question we had in the chat that's kind of relevant to what we're talking about now, from Dr. Curly Tech asked, did you get a chance to hang out with the two actors that played you, so they could learn your mannerisms and stuff like that?
Oh,
is there any like deep researching of the way of Roger Sharpe by those actors?
Well, it's interesting. Mike Feist, we got incredibly lucky to portray me as a younger person.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And for those people who are not familiar with Mike's work, basically a Broadway actor for a number of years in Newsies, as well as My Dear Evan Hansen, most recently starring as Riff in West Side Story, where he was nominated for a BAFTA as Best Supporting Actor.
That's wonderful.
So Mike actually came out to the house to spend a couple of days with us here, because Ellen is also part of the movie. And Mike's thing was, because I'm sitting in the room where we kind of got together, he said, "Do you mind if I set up a video camera?" And it's like, no. And we kind of talked, helped me. We took the dogs out. We had dinner. We talked at length about everything. And I think that what he was trying to do, and I think he accomplished it, was catch the intonation in my voice, not really helping him because I'm old and he's playing me younger. But he had seen, and we had talked about it. He had seen a lot of the seminars and talks that I had done, and some other things that were done independently. So if you go back to the first appearance of Tom Brokaw on the Today Show, other things from around 1974, 75, he was able to delve into that to get the nuance and the subtlety. More importantly, Mike is also an Ohio native, so it's not as if our dialects were that far off.
Were you like, yeah, I want some sauce with the spaghetti sauce, and I want. We got any coffee with that? You know, is that all those Chicago things? Did you pull those out?
But it was interesting because he was just magnificent. He really was. It was just so warm, so friendly, so accommodating. And with Dennis Kietis, who has been an Obie award-winning actor, Better Call Saul. I just saw him on The Equalizer.
Yeah.
I mean, his career just spans incredible works. Dennis and I, again, because of COVID and everything else, we did a Zoom call. And the first thing that he said was, you know, I've seen some of your talks. They're really good, but some of the questions that people ask. So, I mean, yes, he's coming to it. We have some of those queued up. Not from a football but he was being more specific in terms of some of the more inquisitive questions about pinball and some of the details and some of the nuance and subtleties. And I think that, you know, based on however I talk and however my overviews might be, that was one thing. But the kind of feedback as to, so what were you thinking when you designed such and such? I think he was kind of taken aback by that because he wasn't familiar with it. But Dennis was he was awesome. He really, really was. And just so blessed to have not only him, but also having Mike portray me. And then we had the great fortune, my God, for Crystal Reed to play Ellen. And Crystal, for those who are familiar with her work in Swamp Thing or whatever else.
Teen Wolf.
Yep. We did not have the chance to talk with her ahead of time. She was still filming in Europe and came over from that shoot. She lives in Michigan, and I guess made a stop there before she headed to Newburgh, which is where the movie was being shot. So we did get on some calls. She did have a chance to talk with Ellen, and we worked on, I mean, you asked before what the involvement was, worked on costumes, worked on other things, you know, are there anything special? in terms of wardrobe, jewelry, artwork, because Ellen is an artist first and foremost, as well as an art teacher. So going through all of that and sending stuff to all the appropriate folks, costume designers, casting, and everything.
Can I ask a question?
Wow.
Where did you find Ellen? Was that when you were in New York, or did you guys?
Where did you find her?
Yeah, because she's also a pinball player.
How did you and Ellen, your wonderful wife, first meet, Roger?
Right. I know we'll find out by watching the movie, but Ellen,
is it spoiler?
Spoiler. Ellen and your family are a big part of your life. Your sons are also pinball players, and Ellen obviously plays a huge part in your life. And I read somewhere that you guys were married in an arcade. That to me is a little nugget of nuggets.
Yeah.
And was that arcade in New York, or was that a Chicago arcade? And is that arcade still around?
So Ellen and I met in an elevator.
Okay.
And realized early on that there was an age difference and that she had a son. And somehow we managed to kind of stay with it for a number of years, 5 to be exact, before we got married. The reception was, I don't want to tear up whenever I think about him, my late dear friend, Steve Epstein, the Broadway Arcade at 52nd and Broadway. So we took everybody out, immediate family, to dinner at a very exclusive French restaurant, because my mother was born in Paris, and had all the limos there for them. And it was like, goodbye. And Ellen and I took the walk about 3 blocks over, and there are some pictures that I think have been posted at various times and places. Steve greeted us at the door. He had shut down the arcade, set up champagne glasses, had his brown tuxedo on, and allowed me to put on a change purse, which was a high honor. Give everybody quarters to play. But I mean, to give you a sense of timing, God, Sarah Jessica Parker was there with her family because she was on Broadway as Annie.
Wow.
John Hammond was there. Some of the regulars, Lou Reed, obviously, or admittedly, a dear friend. So we had a whole range of people who were there to help celebrate our wedding. And yes, that was my way of kind of sealing the deal. Was we got to do something that is, pinball related. And Steve, bless his heart and soul, kind of set the whole thing up, and it was just fantastic. So in New York City.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Yep. So Ellen,
a pinball love affair.
Well, Ellen understood early on that pinball was a somewhat of an integral part of my life. So when you're living in a studio apartment and you have 5 pinball machines, it's difficult to get away from that.
Just sleep underneath the games, or
yeah, no. But it was, Ellen worked very diligently on helping me get the book together. So yeah, it's very much a partnership, and she's actually a pretty good player when she allows herself to be a good player.
Nice.
And I know that what was it, a few years back? I guess we went to the Atlanta show,
Southern Fried Gaming Expo, and she won. I remember.
Really close.
She was there.
Ah.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I thought she won. She got.
The last.
She was definitely top 4.
Yeah, no. She just finished outside. She finished 9th.
In the main tournament.
Right, in the main tournament.
But the
other
women's
one,
tournament.
She was 4th. Yeah, no, she was there. She was like right up there. And it was something I had to talk her into it. It was like, are you kidding? And then I think it was the next year.
We were all
2 years
freaking
later,
out.
We were in Colorado, and it was like, you're going to play. Go ahead and play. And she did okay, but it was like, I was so proud and so pleased.
Now, I've seen the look of your pride. With there's some videos that I have edited up here where you're playing with your sons, and you seem to be a very good coach and or support person for competitive pinball in your family. Can you describe a little bit more about that? Like I had a soccer dad, go soccer. I would have preferred him to be a pinball pop, but he wasn't. So tell us a little bit about how you've been an advocate for competitive pinball in your family as well as in your community?
Well, to answer the first, not an advocate at all. I think the boys will be the first ones to actually reveal that I never wanted them to compete.
No, it's like actors. Like you can't be an actor. I'm an actor. It's like
right. No, I always believed I never really competed when I was younger. You know, when I was the player that I was, it was done with how whatever passion I want to call it. I will share a brief story, and I will use this person's name in vain. There was a magazine called Games Magazine. I think it may still be in print. There was a fellow by the name of Joe Schick, who ultimately became a very dear friend, worked with Steve and I when we were doing Papa tournaments in New York. Joe was given the task of playing me for a feature in Games Magazine. This was in advance in support of Bally Super Shooter. So just give you a time frame, because Super Shooter was 78, I think, that February in Chicago. And we decided we would play at the Broadway Arcade. I mean, Steve only had, 50, 60, 70 games from everybody. It was going to be a Sunday morning. And the way that we set it up, because Joe was concerned that I would have an advantage, I said, look, in a hat, we will put the names of all the different manufacturers. And at that point, you had Playmatic, you had Interflip, Racel, Zachariah. It wasn't just Williams, Bally, Chicago Coin, and or Stern. It was all of these. And I said, pick it out, and then you pick whatever game. So I don't have an advantage or whatever, and I'm the same. I'm going to pick.
That's pretty cool.
And let's see. So he brought an entourage with him. And we played the first game, and I just got trounced. And Steve and our other late dear friend, Lila Martinez, who worked with us on developing the scoring system for Papa, took me outside and was like, what the hell are you doing? I mean, come on. And it's like, no, I mean, he has his friends there and everything else, and he's taking it really seriously. And I don't play seriously like that. I just play for, like, fun stuff. Just go in and just beat him. God, this is embarrassing. So they did this pep talk. We go back inside. Yes, I go back. I totally annihilated him for the rest of the morning. He was downtrodden, and we became fast friends. But there's a moral to the story. And it was like, God, I was going to write the story that I beat the best pinball player in the world. And I said, well, if you would have told me that up front, we could have played for fun, and you could have said that you beat me. Yeah. But the way you started, no frickin' way. So that was always my way of playing. Look, with Steve, yeah, there was competitiveness, but in a nice way. And it was never like dog eat dog or anything else. I never wanted it to be that way. And I think that with the boys, I didn't want them to separate just the sheer joy of playing pinball that I felt. I didn't want it to be something competitive. And they both played in juniors at Papa. I think it was Papa 3 or 4 where they played. And then suddenly it was like, all right, fine. I let them team up. I think the last Papa that we did before it got switched over to Kevin Martin was in Las Vegas, and the two of them just teamed up for doubles because we did doubles back then, and they were just phenomenal. And after that, all of the chains and barriers are off, because I remember
you had to let them play.
Right. Well, this woman was at Pinball Expo one year, and the boys are playing. It's along the wall, if you remember how the Westin Hotel was. And I'm standing on a chair, as I usually do, just to look and see how they're doing. And I got off the chair, and the woman just turned to me, and she said, "Oh, are those your sons?" And I said, "Yep, they are." "Oh, you must be very proud of them. Do you have anything to do with pinball?" And I said, "No, not at all. I'm just their dad." And somebody else heard it, and it was like, "Roger, stop." And then some other person came over, and it was interesting. And maybe this is to your point, James, of what you said with having the soccer dad. So do you have rules when they come home from school that they have to finish their homework and then practice pinball for 2 or 3 hours every day? And it was just like, huh? No.
You should have.
Right. So, in fact, the boys will also reveal that there are some games in the collection I never let them play because those are special games. It's like these other games you guys can play, but, you know, I don't trust you to treat them really nice. So yeah, I was kind of not necessarily a backstage dad when it came to pinball.
Backstage pinball dad.
So anyway,
That's good.
So yeah, I mean, they gravitated to it, and thank God. I mean, I see what they've accomplished and achieved over the years, and not just professionally, with Zachary at Stern and Joshua over at Raw Thrills, getting Steve and I to step back in to resurrect the IFPA and what they've done to take that kind of over and on their shoulders. And there's a heck of a lot of pride because they've been able to separate out. And I have to admit, and I'm not telling tales out of school, I've seen a lot of parents, both fathers and mothers, when I've gone to some of these events and their, in quotes, children are playing, and it's like, it's serious. It's like, my God, the pressure. Why are you yelling at him? It's just pinball, you know, let him enjoy. The analogy that I will make, if this makes sense at all to you or to anybody else watching, is that there was a golf tournament when I was at Williams Valley Midway, where we met with all of our vendors. And it was just a special thing. You give out prizes and whatever else. And we got hooked up with, in my group, we had one vendor and 2 other people and myself from work. And this one fellow, I'll say the name, James Green. It was best ball. So you play 18 holes, no matter how bad or good, everybody has to at least count one drive and one this and one whatever. On a par 5 that was about close to 600 yards. And for people who don't know golf, that's very far. That's all I'll say. That's like, James hit a drive. He teed off first and must have hit a drive about close to 300 yards. And it's like, I can throw the ball out there. I'm just going to hit, but it doesn't matter. We're taking James's hit. We go to his drive because nobody else could get there. Hit a 3-wood or whatever on the green. So it's like, okay, we can take our practice shots. You know where I'm going with this. He putted out and got the eagle because he had talked about he hadn't played in a number of years and blah, blah, blah. And what he said to me really made an impression upon me. He played when he was in school, in high school. His parents, his dad or whatever else, hey, got to practice, got to do this, really pushed. It was no longer fun for him. And he stopped playing. And I guess the point I was trying to make was I always wanted my sons to have a love and a thrill of playing pinball and to never take it too seriously. Doesn't mean you don't want to win.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean you can't lose gracefully, but never ever let it cross over that barrier where there is resentment to the game, because it's always on you as a player. It's never on the game. I'm sorry.
No, that's beautiful. And, you know, I think you did a great job because they are great players and they are great sports about losing too.
Yeah.
Well,
No,
Joshua
I'm just kidding.
especially.
Joshua
Ever
especially.
heard.
Yeah,
Right.
Jeff Teolis is in the chat. He says hi, and he will clip that sound bite of you saying Joshua especially, and it'll be on his next podcast. I am sure of it.
There you go.
Excellent.
Oh, but they're great. Yeah. You did a great job. At
Thank you.
letting,
Thank
yeah,
you.
they always bring so much fun to all the tournaments and stuff too. So
Well,
That's
and now
awesome.
that the grandchildren are playing, Colin is amazing.
Yeah.
Charlotte is incredible. Evan is able to get up there and actually flip, knows exactly what to do in terms of turning the games on and whatever. And on the other side, Benson is just amazing as well. So yeah, I
Runs
mean,
his
I guess there's another generation yet to come.
Well, let's talk a little bit about, get a little bit more philosophical, about pinball while we're talking, and then we'll get to some questions from the chat. But what do you think? There has been a resurgence in pinball. There has been, obviously there's a movie coming out with your history of pinball. Where do you see pinball going? Where do you see the sport? Do you see more Do you see it as a sport? Do you see it as, do we see it in barcades? Do you want to see the arcade return? Do you want to see the online versions out there where you can connect online and compete online? Tell us what you see the future to be in pinball. Is it better games, different games? I asked all those questions. Now I'll just throw it to you.
I'll say yes to many of them as an answer. I think in any way, shape, or form, pinball is really something that hopefully is desirable and something that people have an interest in. I've always said, and I firmly believe this, until someone comes up with another entertainment medium that captures all of what pinball gives me sensorily. Yeah. Touch, sound, sight, just all of that.
It's kinetic art.
Smell sometimes.
Yeah, yes. Come on.
So I think until that happens, pinball is going to remain compelling for everyone. And I think it's interesting as a way to answer the question without belaboring it. It's a unique attraction. I think the biggest challenge that pinball has had and always will have is the intimidation factor and the fear of looking foolish. And I'm speaking about adults. There have been many times over the years where I found myself, and again, whether it was with licensed games and you're at a movie premiere and you're standing next to Whoopi Goldberg because she happens to be there for a T2 red carpet, or you're standing next to MC Hammer at the opening for Addams Family or Arnold, any of them, okay? And not wanting to name drop. It's like, well, let's go play. Oh, no. I can't. I used to play, but stop it. My God, just play, okay? Just have some fun. Well, I mean, if anybody's seen any of the news shows, Brian Gumbel on the Today Show, I was on a couple of times. And it's like, well, this is no skill. You just made that shot. I mean, I'm commenting on what he is doing and the fact that he's doing precisely and exactly what he should be doing because of where the angles are, where the light is flashing, and or whatever I might be saying to him that may or may not be discernible to the audience, but he's doing that. And that has happened on any number of occasions where the biggest challenge has been overcome that flight fear of like, no, stop the cameras and I can play or whatever else, and just getting them in front of the game. And I think for young people as well, whether or not it is overload, where they don't have an understanding of what's going on because there's so much going on, that it is something that has them cautious in regard to what do I want to do and how does that affect my self-esteem. Having said all of that, I think with the barcade situation, kind of replacing the old singles places back in the 70s and 80s, where you can go and in a non-confrontational environment as a young single male or a group of young single girls, you can play pinball together. Instead of asking for a dance or saying, hi, can I buy you a drink? Any of the old standard lines. And I think that the generation that we're now seeing kind of grew up with it on college campuses. And it became part and parcel, whether they were at the student union or a local bar hangout where there was a pinball machine or whatever else, where they played casually. And I think that what winds up happening is one generation feeds to the next, which means that pinball becomes a little bit more attainable, convenient, much more approachable. I think I'm going to answer a couple of more ways for you. God willing for Zen, Farsight, and others to provide virtual emulations for people to play. I cannot tell you how often I have gone to events, and again, it's been since 2019, so it's been a while, but I don't think it's changed too much, where somebody says, oh, wow, I played Tales from the Arabian Nights at home. on my iPad.
Yeah.
Oh, here it is. And they've already done their tutorial. They don't have to watch Bowen or Steve Bowden or anybody else to know how to play the game. They already know it. They've perfected it. And now, oh, wow, I get to play it. And I'm actually touching
Feel
the
it,
flippers.
yeah.
Right. So I think that has been a wonderful convergence, if you will, for the casual player to get, again, more comfortable. Obviously and admittedly, we had a period of time in recent years where there were over 3,000 events taking place around the world. Expos, conventions, whatever, get-togethers, where families could go for a Saturday or Sunday, play free pinball. Maybe they would listen to some long-winded speaker like myself or somebody else. Maybe they compete in some parent-child or junior tournament, something that exposes them to them, exposes the games to them. So that kind of keeps it going as well. I think that what the pandemic showed more than anything else was the resiliency of pinball. The places that closed down, for whatever the reasons, suddenly found that there was a marketplace for people to rent a game. So at least they could get some revenue. Hi, yes, I'll take $10 a week, $20, whatever the number was. That person now has a game in their home for some period of time. That business, whether they're able to reopen or not, at least was able to find a home for the adoption of their games, not necessarily for all their video games. Let's face it, a sit-down driver may not fit in somebody's rec room, but a pinball machine, yes. And I think that the pandemic, and look, all of us are close enough without knowing all the details to know that the last 2 years have been singular years of prosperity for all the manufacturers. They can't meet demand quickly enough. Forgetting about part shortages and all the rest of it. It's the fact that you have now this growth of people wanting games. Businesses are now reopening again, thank God, that are bringing in games. The bars and taverns, not so much because of the old DUI from 30 years ago, which kind of shut down happy hours and put a crimp not only in pinball, but also darts and pool. So to answer your question, I think that competitive pinball, look, if esports can command the attention that it has over these years, taking nothing away, but watching people work on a keyboard or a controller on their computer to play Call of Duty for $1 million or whatever else and getting corporate sponsors, I think that maybe not in my lifetime, although I'd like to think so. I think that what the IFPA has shown and what Papa did before, unfortunately they pulled the plug, was that you have an appetite by a growing number of people. Bells and chimes and all the rest of it have opened up for women. Thank God for that. You have, and I've joked to Jim Belcito, who I saw recently at the Coin-Op show. He said, you should come to Indus. And I said, what, so I can kill myself for a marathon like the boys wrapped me into Edinburgh? And he said, no, yes. And I said, I understand, and you have seniors, but I need a super seniors. The seniors now is only like 55. That's still too young for me to be competitive. So we kind of joke, but I think that the key point I'm trying to make is there's juniors, there's women's, there's the open. Yep. I mean, what Steve and I did with Papa was we had ABC divisions. We played doubles. We did parent-child. We did stuff that was insane because the number of hours, the number of machines necessary to kind of get all of that together. And I know that, look, everybody works with finite time. I'm not suggesting that, all right, you start first thing Thursday and you have to run through Sunday, but maybe it carries over to Monday so you can fit everything in. But I think the more opportunities there are to divest, if you will, from the core top line players and give everybody an opportunity. Again, James, to further answer your question, I think that there is no limitation to what can be done. And I think that, Escher Lefkoff and others who started when they were small little children have proven that, oh my God, look at their skills. And to watch the skill level is incomprehensible to me in terms of how deliberate and methodical everybody has become. And I won't get into the details as to what my approach is versus what everybody's approach is. But I think that there is something that is truly elegant and almost ballet-like, as well as chess, obviously, to watch. And I think that now with what Carl's been able to do with his setup and others, where you can have the overhead, because the biggest thing was, I can't see anything. I don't know what's going on.
I know.
So I think that now we can do that. And the Ocho last year, when they did the tournament, was outstanding. It showed that, look, next to axe throwing, maybe there's some world for pinball. And I know that the boys have looked a lot at it. I know that over the years, Zachary, for one, has had some endorsements. I know that what they've been able to do through Stern in supporting, whatever that football bowl game is down in the Bahamas, and I forget the name. I think those are the types of things I'd like to see more being directed at colleges. I'd love to see a Big Ten pinball tournament.
Nice.
University of Indiana against University of Illinois. I'd like to see somebody approaching the Greek system, if it still exists, and say, all right, let's have the fraternities play and the sororities play. Nice. I mean, I think that there are ways to get more involvement, more exposure, to really have an impact. So to answer your question more concurrently and concretely, I think the future for pinball is limitless. And I think the beauty and the wonder is that despite the fact that the size and the shape of a game hasn't really dramatically, radically changed, it is still a new, different, wondrous adventure. And what the designers and programmers are all doing nowadays, and the mechanical people, my God, they're just taking it to another level. They really are. So that there is this wonder of, as I call it, this fantasy world under glass to explore. And the fact that once you've played one Godzilla, whatever edition it might be, play the one next to it, and it's going to play differently. So thank you, world. It's the same as bowling. I can go to a bowling alley and league, and it's 1 through 32, and I'm playing on 30 and 31 as my lanes, and guess what? 30 is going to break more than 31. They've been oiled the same way and everything else, but guess what? Not any consistency at all. And if you watch bowling on TV, it is the same way, where you'll see people, they're only bowling on 2 lanes typically, and it's like, he has to take a different track. This one's not moving as much. So the people who complain about pinball, because it's like, well, once I play the one game, it's not the same as the other one. It's like, damn right.
That's the beauty of it.
Yeah, that's totally the beauty of it.
That's the way it should. So again, I think that there is a world for us, and I'm hoping that I live long enough to see the next great breakthrough.
Love it. Love it. Omoto, do we want to open up to some questions? I'm sure.
Oh my gosh, we have so many questions.
Tons of questions. So.
I'm not on that link. I'm not on that link, so I don't know.
We'll read them out.
No, it's okay. First, can you explain what doubles are when you were talking about Josh and Zach playing at doubles? Because Blake asked it in the chat too, and in my head I instantly want to think split flipper, but that's not what it is, right? So give a little tournament education to us.
All right, so the stuff that people have devised now, other than some things, were a direct result of Steve and I. So the Broadway arcade would shut down. I would be there. Steve would be counting up change and getting everything empty. And we would decide what wall of games are we going to play. And I would turn on the games, and it'd be like, all right, I'll start. And we would play all the games. And at times, just because we were in the mood, and typically it would be sometimes during hours where Steve was reaching into his pocket to give out exact, precise quarters for a $5 bill or whatever else, which was always amazing to me. I would be playing the right flipper and he'd be playing the left. So that became Zen, or split finger, that people have done, where it's like the two of us would do that just to kind of goof around. So that was one way. So that has been picked up. Doubles literally was doubles. It was, I remember one tournament, Larry DeMar and I were teammates. Lyman and I were teammates during one of the seasons of the Chicago Pinball League. Zachary and Josh, teammates. So you are playing as 1 and 3 or 2 and 4 against whoever.
Nice.
So that's literally doubles. And what we did for Papa was we set up a special doubles. We have Papa champions. So people who had won pinball leagues or whatever else, that was a separate one. We had the open, A, B, or C, or D. I think we actually went down to D. We had juniors, and we had doubles. We had all that stuff happening simultaneously, which was insane. But doubles was anybody. So hopefully that answers the question.
Yeah, and you get to choose your own teammate too, right?
Yeah, you do. And then depending on the flip of a coin or however, you get to pick if you want to go 1, 3, or 2 and 4. And if you go back in time, if you remember, Stern used to do the tabulation for you in the old dot matrix displays on some of their games like Rocky.
Right.
And Bullwinkle, Checkpoint, I think, had it, where they totaled. And the scoring system that we developed for that, which I think a lot of people still employed, was that you would get points for winning. So 1 and 3 would be points, 2 and 4.
Right.
And then you got points for the overall score. So if somebody did really, really well, okay, well, I didn't get the extra bonus points, but at least I got the 2 points for winning. So hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. A fun question we had from Pinball Mayhem Jeremy said, who would you like to play pinball with that you haven't played with before? So,
Wow.
living, not living, just your dream person you could have played pinball with.
I would love to have played pinball. I would love to have played pinball again with Harry Williams.
Nice.
Harry was he was a wonder. And some of his games, he made it a point just to say to me, oh, I thought you'd like that. I was thinking about you when I did that little area or whatever. But God, I played against a lot of different people, and more importantly, with a lot of different people. I don't know.
That was a good one.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Thank you.
That was a good one. You don't have to think of any more. That was awesome.
Instead of me devolving, I have played with Benson, Evan, and Colin. And Colin is a piece of work. I've also played with Charlotte. So for those who don't know, the 2 3-year-olds, the 8-year-old, and the 10-year-old. So, yeah.
Cute.
The little flippers. It's awesome. From Jeff Teolis asking, he says, I'm a believer that a licensed game helps sell the game and gets quarters in the machine, but it doesn't make it a better game than a non-licensed game. What are your thoughts on that?
Yes.
Well,
see, look, that was a nice short answer.
You've also designed games though too. Do you want to talk about what you put into your games? Why you selected some of those decisions?
Sure. I've done 5 pinball machines that have been produced. Probably another 3 or 4 that never saw the light of day for whatever reason. I'll start with the first one. It's probably the easiest, although not necessarily the most compelling one, was Sharpshooter. And a game that influenced me was Free Fall Sky Jump from Gottlieb. Had the row of targets, which I really, really liked. The feature on the right side, which we wound up calling Going to the Races, if you remember, was just the 2 little lanes going, and you had the little rubber, which you could bounce and then it would come down. It was like, that's kind of like dead, and it's kind of like a bad right area. Satin Doll was a game that had two jets on the left side, but the placement of them, the power was meaningless, didn't do anything. So basically I wound up changing my entry point with my lanes on top, another set of lanes under. I had the drop target bank, and I put the jets on the right side, the hope being that potentially you could knock out the entire bank of targets without ever flipping, just by having rebounds hitting into the targets.
Wow. That
was something that I really liked as an idea. Admittedly, I did a little slight opening on Cyclops with that, just because the memory constraints were different back then. I was able to do drops in front of stand-ups and was able to add a monster bonus, which was important. I never wanted a game to to basically max out. It's why I know Alvin Gottlieb gave me a lot of grief because I kept on railing on him with the scores that he was doing when number one, he wouldn't switch to solid state, and he finally did with Cleopatra and Sinbad being the first. But the Million Light, if you're going to score, we used to tilt on the old Bally games. Wait, it's 996? Let's tilt so I can get the last score up there, 998. So with Sharpshooter, I put the extra digit as a readout of 1 million. Harry Williams, thankfully, thank you, on Big Game, actually did the extra display, the extra scoring reel. I mean, the others were just dummies. It was fine, but it was 7-digit scoring. So yeah, I mean, I tried to choreograph the games as best as I could. I will share with people about Sharpshooter. The original intent, which is going to be really strange just based on the era. So you have the drop target bank. Mm-hmm. Yeah. If you get from shooter S all the way to R in order, that was going to be more points. You have to get them
in
out
order.
So
yes. Now,
so
if this is so if I go from R down to S, then that was more points. The addition was I can't do it that way because they didn't have the capability to do resettable drop targets. And the idea of reading things when they were down wasn't going to be fair because then I have to get them all back down again and then start back up. But that was the original hope and desire. And once I completed a bank, I wanted you to be forced to go into the kickout hole to get your multiplier. And when I did some of the test shooting myself, along with Mike Kubin and others, it was like, this is impossible. Right, fine. Tell you what, you don't have to do those two steps to make that happen. So again, I tended to work on all the sounds. Steve was there with the galloping hooves for the spinner because I couldn't come up with that, but there was the gunshots, the dynamite explosions. So again, very much heavy-handed. And,
so how did you get your face on the artwork? How did you make that decision?
Lee Goldboss, who was the president of Game Plan, along with his partner Mike Abrams, and the company they had was AES Technology. They did some government work. One of the technologies and machines that they created, working on behalf of the post office and others, was it had the ability to take out paper clips or staples. So you would run it and the staples would magically be done and you could mail it and not have whatever else. However that technology was. Got introduced to Lee through a wonderful sales guy by the name of Ken Anderson, who recently passed away. I was at the New York State show and he wanted to show me something from this new company that was just formed. And he took me over to a cocktail table pinball machine based on real cigarettes. And I played it and I said, it's kind of neat, but I hate it. And he was like, no. I said, you know how I feel about cigarettes and alcohol or anything else with pinball? No, you can't. He said, well, then you're not going to like Foxy Lady, which is our next one, which is based on a whiskey or something from whoever the distiller was. But I had the dinner with Lee and with Ken and told them what I thought, and they were starting and at some point wanted to do a full-size game. And I remember coming into Chicago, I was still living in New York, coming into Chicago for CES, which used to be twice a year. The winter show was in Las Vegas, the summer show was Chicago. And I took a side trip out to Elk Grove Village, where their factory was, and met with Lee and, said hi and whatever. And he said, the question came up, if you could do a pinball machine, what would you do? True story. I asked for a little piece of paper. I made some circles and some other stuff. I am not an artist. Anybody can attest to that. And I showed him. And I said, well, these are bumpers. This is targets and stuff. I said, but it would be too expensive. Because I knew what the cost was for games in terms of switches and whatever. And he called in Wendell McAdams, who was his top chief engineer. background at Chicago Coin and others. Wendell was just a fabulous guy. And I showed Wendell, and Wendell said, it'd be too expensive after I explained what my little drawings were. And I remember turning to Lee and I said, see? And then he asked a question that changed my life. Would it be successful? If I know anything about pinball, having played every one that's ever been made since 1976, since 1966, yes. And he said, okay, we'll build it.
Wow. That's the story for our whole podcast right here.
Well, 9 out of 10 weekends, I flew in from New York to Chicago during winter. I was there during Christmas. I was there during New Year's Eve, putting it all together with Ed Sabula, magnificent guy, Joe Jose. People know him from some marvelous, incredible, wacky design games at Stern, but just a wizard, really, really was. And we built up Sharpshooter and took it to the Europe show back then, which was I want to say it was like the AEI or whatever, at Alley Palace in London, basically with Scotch tape. We built up the first 3 games. I have one of the first games that was built, and it knocked everybody's socks off. Wow. So that was the birth of Sharpshooter and a chance for me to do more games. I had a contract with Williams, which resulted in Barracora. I was working on designs at Gottlieb all at the same time. Had a chance to work at Atari, and unfortunately Don Osborne passed away, and we weren't able to culminate that. And then came back. For those who are interested, Lady Sharpshooter, no, I did not do that. Coney Island, I said no way in hell, because I just flipped the playfield. Helped Ed with Andromeda, worked on Loch Ness Monster a little bit. So, and then Cyclops, as I talked about.
What brought you back to Chicago?
That's amazing.
Because you were flying back and forth from New York for this work, correct? Or did you?
Yeah, no, I was still in New York. Not only GQ, but, my career path moved on with another publisher, did a series of 8 books, started up a couple of magazines, and went to work for a computer startup that was funded by Kodak and Xerox to the tune of, about $50 million, called Causin Systems, which was SoftStrip. For those who don't know what SoftStrip is, think of it as dense barcode, which is a terrible way to describe it. There was a reader, it plugged into an RS-232 port, and I wound up getting folks in publishing, magazines and books, to agree to put it in soft strips, so that back then, and this is before all of you were born, people had to key in voluminous pages of code to get a utility, to get a game, to get whatever. And God forbid that you made one error somewhere where after your multiple hours, it was like, with SoftStrip, basically it read it automatically, and lo and behold, you had it. So Dilithium Press and others, Byte Magazine, PC Computing, all of the early first generation publications switched over to featuring both. I mean, nobody could force you, but we just knew that it was going to become really a standard as a way to make things better and easier. We actually came up with the first utilities that allowed Apple computers and IBM computers to share. I mean, remarkable. I hired an incredible staff of people. I was the vice president of publishing. And unfortunately, things did not go as smoothly. So I was living in Connecticut. At that point, I had moved out of New York. The boys were a little bit older, and I did not want them going to, Josh had been in a preschool in the basement of a YMCA on 23rd Street across from the Chelsea Hotel. The school that we looked at was on 8th Avenue in Chelsea, where they had razor wire on the roof. And the point that was being made when we were walking around for our go around was, and the children come up here, this is the playground. And
the razor wire.
Fortunately, they get impaled if they're going after a loose ball.
Exactly. Can you just imagine all the kickball games up there? Yeah.
Right. So I wanted them to know that you didn't need a key to get into a park. And we used to take trips down to New Jersey to be with Steve and Sandy, Dale and Erica, their daughters, who were around the same age as the boys, and moved to Westport. And then from Westport, after I started at Clausen, they opened up a factory in Waterbury and moved up to Cheshire. So all of that aside, I am still doing things within the industry. I'm still writing for Replay and Playmeter and Cashbox. Obviously, with the time frame being what it is, Barracora, with Cyclops, and with some other projects. I worked on some video games as well, some of the first laser discs. So I was still somewhat involved and entrenched. I used to joke that I had put in 14 years as an apprentice. And again, without getting into major details that probably nobody cares about, there were a few different opportunities for me to move back to Chicago, move back home and work for some of these companies. And the timing wasn't right, things weren't right. And then suddenly in March of 1988, Ken Fidesna, Vice President and General Manager at Williams, and Marty Glazman, who was the VP of Marketing and Sales, called and offered me a job. And they called on a Monday, and it was an interesting conversation to come in as Director of Marketing. And it was like, oh, I'll think about it. And Tuesday they called back. They sweetened the offer, thinking that my hesitancy was based on the money, which it wasn't. I was still, I will share something very personal. And whether or not anybody has ever felt this way, and if it's even appropriate to bring up here, but I tend to be somewhat of an open book. When you have an opportunity to realize something that's a dream, sometimes you not only have to pinch yourself, you have to really kind of go inside yourself to say, is this what I really want? I always wanted to come back to the Midwest. Taking nothing away from any other part of the world, I wanted my boys to grow up with Midwest values. If we were in Westport, I didn't want them thinking that all children drove Mercedes-Benz station wagons. I'm sorry. It can't be that way. So I always wanted that Midwest ethic that I always felt very strongly about. So the Tuesday call was... Did
you still have family here? Did you still have family in the Midwest and Chicago at the time?
No, I'll get to that as well,
okay.
Which makes it even stranger.
Okay.
So Tuesday, the call, let me think about it. Wednesday, Kenny and Marty did not call. And Ellen already knew when we had met that at some point in time, God willing, I want to move to the Midwest. Ellen was a New Yorker. I mean, she had never been that far. Once when I flew out here to pick up a car in 1976, and she came out with me, and we drove the car back to New York. I said, it's over. They didn't call. Well, you wanted it. I mean, I really do want this now. And they actually called back. I forget if Kenny and Marty called me on Thursday or if I called them. But anyway, I wound up saying yes. Friends of mine, people that I knew, to answer what you would ask, James. So you still have family back there, right? I said, no. My folks have retired. They have a house in Florida, but they're traveling. My sister lives in Pittsburgh. Nope. You have friends though, right? Nope. Haven't really stayed in touch with anybody. I have one friend, very close friend, that I met my first year in college, but I haven't really stayed in touch with anybody. There was a fact, I think it was my 10th anniversary reunion, which happened to coincide with the AMOA show. And I figured, okay, I'm downtown. Let me just drive up to the reunion. You would have thought that, I don't know, that somehow something wonderful had happened. Roger's here if you came in all the way from New York. No, I came from the Hilton downtown in Chicago. I did not fly in just for this, but it was a question of like recommitting and connecting with people that 10 years ago I had seen. I went to Wisconsin. There was only like 4 other people that went to Wisconsin from my high school. So you wind up losing touch with everybody and you make new friends and whatever else. So yeah, the question was, do you know anybody? I'm like, nope, don't. So I came back, and as I was driving back, the rumor was, because I'm looking for places to live, I hooked up with my friend Mickey to stay in his place in Evanston while I looked with different realtors. And Marty shared with me that Williams was thinking of moving. Now, for those who may or may not familiar,
no, I'm just teasing.
For those who may or may not be familiar with Chicago, which is somewhat of a large city with suburbs, it's like, where might they be moving? Because they were on the near north side, about 30 blocks west of Wrigley Field. So I'm looking at places which will be somewhat of a convenient commute. Not the southwest suburbs, not the north side, not God only knows where. Where? Well, we don't know yet. So I'm looking at various places that I still have some level of familiarity with. Found a place, and I am traveling with family, the moving vans and everything else over 4th of July weekend. This is in 1988. And I called Marty from, I think I was in Pennsylvania or whatever. Hi, just wanted to give you an update coming because I was commuting back and forth to sell my house in Connecticut, buy the house, see the family, get packed up, whatever, all of the other stuff that is inconsequential. And Marty's comment to me was, oh, it's official. I'm sorry? What's official? Oh, we did purchase Bally Midway. My next response, which I thought was appropriate, was, do I keep on coming or do I turn back? I mean, I don't know what that means for me. Oh, no. You keep on coming. You have double the responsibility. And yes, we need to have you, whatever. So yeah, I was there during the transition when we purchased the amusement game division from Bally Midway. So a different point in time. Sorry for the long-winded answer, but
and all of this is in this biopic film, right?
Kind of. Yeah, some of it is touched upon. The biopic film is only a 12-part, 58-hour extravaganza if you want to cover everything.
But it's really funny, though. It's a good, funny movie.
We need the extended edition.
Yeah,
right.
Blu-ray.
Captured.
What other quick questions?
The director's cut.
That's awesome. So with the movie in mind, just kind of derailing a little bit, Top Pin had asked if they shot most of the film in Chicago. I don't know if you had mentioned where the shooting happened, where production took place. Could you talk a little bit about that? And then what I want to add to that is this entire movie was shot during COVID, which actual Hollywood and the movie industry was completely shut down for the most part because of, just all the precautions we were making when COVID emerged in 2020. And that is its own feat in itself. So if you could talk a little bit about what that was like, that would be really awesome.
It was the principal photography was a 22-day shoot.
Nice.
3 weeks ahead of that for working with the location and where they wound up setting up base camp, which was in Newburgh, New York. I wound up staying in Fishkill, which was at one of the towns nearby. But everything was pressure filled. The understanding as they were starting to lock in with location and who they were going to need for set dressing and all the rest of it was everybody needed to be tested. Everybody needed to be vaccinated. Sorry for those who don't trust or believe in, we won't say the science, who don't believe that vaccinations are important. Everybody needed to be masked. The understanding was, and however big or small the budget of the movie was, that if anything happened, I think the classic example was Mission Impossible, where Tom Cruise shut down production on the movie for, I guess it was like a month. Back then, the window was like 2 weeks, where if anybody came down with it, then you waited for the appropriate time so that there were no other outbreaks. He waited a month. Look, that's a Paramount movie. That's budgets of,
they can do
hundreds
that,
of millions of dollars.
Yeah.
We're not hundreds of millions of dollars for a budget. So the understanding was if anything were to happen at any point in time, the movie would not exist. So that was the cautionary tale. So it was Newburgh. It was places around and nearby towns on that part of New York. Yeah, so it was a 22-day shoot. It started, principal photography was sometime like the middle of October, because I traveled out. It was my first trips since March of 2020, which was an experience unto itself for me personally. I went out for 4 days, came back for a weekend, and then came out again for 4 days, which was the end of the principal photography and the wrap. There was some shooting. All right, so the principal photography and everything else was all done there. And I have some of the call sheets and everything else. I forget the number of locations that they did for the actual real locations, outside, insides, whatever they had constructed with the crew. But it was all within the reasonable vicinity.
Nice.
I know when I flew out, I had to take a PCR test 2 days before. When I landed, I had to call them and say, "Hi, I am here." And they directed me to go to some outpatient clinic so I could get another test before I could go and arrive to see them all. When I got there, temperature checks, N95s. I mean, I have masks, but I was like, no, we're using only these.
It's amazing that they got it in the can. It's like crazy.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, truthfully.
And that's all expense too, yeah.
Well, everybody had masks. If you were not, all right, let's get ready, we're going to go do the shoot. The shields came off, masks came off, everything else, and then they'd go do the shoot, put everything back on, wait. So it was all of that in addition. So again, I was able, and again, with the help of these incredible people who provided games, we got them trucked in, brought in, set up. Eddie Kramer, who some people may know in the community, was incredibly helpful in being our tech on site to make sure the games were working, make sure that everything was going to be appropriate. I wanted to go through. I had already done it. I had already come up off of the shooting script as to which games were going to be in which scenes. This is how I want it, but I didn't know what the space was going to be. So when I got there, in terms of some of the scenes, it was a question of, we have more space. Oh, good, I can add. Oh, we have a little less space. Okay, then it should be these. Let me prioritize these accordingly, just based on what the scene was. But I know that the guys, Austin and Meredith, did some additional shooting. I want to say a couple of months ago or so, up around Maryland and probably southern New Jersey. It took a couple of days. I might have mentioned to you, we did a pre-call for those who may or may not be interested. I was very deliberate in looking at some of the rough cuts where it's like, that score is wrong. We need to change the score. Okay, well, here, give us a hit list of stuff.
That spinner rip would actually be this many points, not 100.
If it's going to be Cowpoke or Buckaroo, I need the horse to kick at this point in time. That's a 100-point switch. It has to be this.
Yes,
so we went
that's
through
awesome.
all of the various games where it was like, that shows that the game is still on. It can't be still on. Are you sure that that's the right tilt light on that game? Wait, let me take a look. So, I mean, we're going down to the very base details. So
did you take out LEDs on EMs and make sure they put the incandescent bulbs back in?
Yes, there was no LEDs.
Wow.
Thank you.
Wow.
No, everything had to be as authentic as
totally.
possible. Trust me.
Wow.
And we did have some issues. God, how do we light this better? Well, just do it overhead. Let me tell you how James and I did pictures for the book. Come on, you guys can do this. We'll take the glass off. It's fine.
Yeah.
Don't worry. So going through all of that, I know they did some extra pickups so that, yes, I would be comfortable because I didn't want anything to be out of place. and everything needed to be as appropriate and accurate as it should be based on what the scene was. So yes, that's a much better score. And even to the point, I think that they actually called me because they were with Kevin McCune for, I forgot which game it was in his collection of stuff. And it was, so are you saying that like 7,943 is okay? I mean, whatever the numbers were, I was like, we're running up the score. Just tell us what it should be in the context. So yeah. So that's where the movie was shot. And everybody was housed locally in terms of the main talent. So everybody was under control. And if I tell you the tightest and strictest controls that I've ever seen, unbelievable. So yeah, awesome. So we made it somehow.
Yay!
So do we have a release date at all for this? Were you thinking the end of summer, or when do we?
I think that the hope right now is sometime in the fall.
Okay.
Right now, I know that there are considerations being made for film festivals.
Yes. To
look for maybe a distributor to step up, because I guess that's how the process is done with indie movies.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that they've made a lot of headway just because of the stars.
Yeah.
Not me. Mike and Crystal and Dennis have, a heck of a lot of draw, and specifically Mike with what's happened. I've joked with him that this is going to be, he's only done musical stuff. I mean, he's an incredible singer and dancer. If anybody ever looks up anything about Mike Feist, F-A-I-S-T, you're not going to see him doing necessarily dramatic roles, if you want to call it that, or dramedies. And it's like, God, I mean, I've destroyed your career now.
No.
From West Side Story to pinball. I don't understand how this goes. But anyway, I think that truthfully, there's a lot of power to that, as well as, admittedly, Austin and Meredith. I mean, their resumes are amazing. The talent that they've worked with from Spielberg and others over the years means that, they're not unknown for, one of their first feature films. And I've joked with them that, at some point in time, if I'm around long enough, I'll be able to say, oh, wow, I knew them when. Wait, they did a little movie about me, and look at them now on this red carpet or God only knows what. So it's kind of exciting. Again, hopefully in the fall. But I think we're going to let everything wait to see what happens. And some of it, I have to admit, and this is just me talking, it's not MPI or the brothers, there's so much that is now going on out in the real world that not necessarily are impacting us directly. I just saw in the news that I think it's Philadelphia has called for indoor mask mandates. Yeah. I know that England now, the UK, 1 in 13 people have COVID. I don't want to scare people, but depending on what the travel restrictions might be to go to a festival, to have a movie opening, it's no longer a necessity. I just saw a notice that the Batman will be on HBO Max next week. Okay, I don't have to go to a big theater anymore, depending on the screen that I have or whatever device I have hooked up. I think that Netflix has shown that, heck, we have feature-length films that are award-winning. Oh. And I think that, I come from a world where it's theatrical. Yeah. You're going to go to the movies, and whether it's a Saturday matinee or it's a Friday evening or a Saturday evening or whatever, I'm going to get the big bag of popcorn, a soda, maybe some candy, and let's go sit down and enjoy whatever. So I know that all of that has changed. So when people have asked family and whatever else, so what do you think? It's like, I don't know.
It's gonna find a place. I mean, we hope to see it theatrically. I hope to have go to see it in a movie theater where I feel safe, but then have a group experience to enjoy the film and laugh and interact with it. Yeah. That would be my preference.
Yeah.
But at the same time, if it is on a streaming service, I'm still going to watch it. And it's nice that they know that I'll still have access to it that way, too. If not, a little bit of both. Maybe see it in the theater, and then it'll come to a streaming service.
Oh, yeah. And once it is distributed and everything, every pinball show, once we get approval from the Bragg brothers and MPI, we want to put up, big jumbo screen. Either we do it like in the parking lot, or if there's a movie theater nearby, and we're going to all be watching this film together at every pinball show out there.
I've had some recent conversations with MPI, and I know that they are hoping and looking for a premiere somewhere. And that premiere somewhere will be something, either a festival, and however they show them on a screen in some theater or whatever. So I'm anticipating probably needing to make a trip somewhere. Unless they want to do it
at the Music Box in Chicago. The best theater in town is the Music Box in Chicago.
Yep.
Okay.
I've actually been there for a documentary that was done a number of years back. I forget, it was Olson. I forget his first name, but he did a film that I was one of the little people in and whatever else, and it was at the Music Box.
Love the Music Box.
Yep. Cool place.
Yeah. Any other? What other questions we have?
Yeah, so this is a two-parter question. One, have you ever seen the drunk history of your day you saved pinball? And then to feed onto that question, is there any part of everyone's historical recap of that famous day in 1976 that they have gotten wrong?
Nice.
All right, so I'll answer the first
because that's
one.
relevant to the movie too.
It is, as a matter of fact. So Zachary, I was coming back from somewhere, and Zachary had called and told Ellen and I to set up the DVR Tuesday night at 7:30. Okay. I go to the listing, and it's Drunk History. Now, understand, I know nothing about Drunk History as a program. It hasn't been anything that I was watching for the 3 prior years that it had been on, winning awards. So I click on it, and it's like, all right, more info. Oh, story of Milton Bradley. Okay, Roger Sharpe, Bobby Fischer. Huh? Roger Sharpe. Okay. So Ellen and I happened to be home, so we caught it, in quotes, live. And Topher Grace is playing Milton Bradley. And it's like, wow, what a great story. This is fantastic. And it doesn't occur to me in terms of the drinking and whatever else. They're drinking, but okay. We watched Mine, which was incredibly uncomfortable. I understand, having a movie made about you, depending on how people feel, you can either be disingenuously thrilled, or like me, you can be kind of out-of-body, surreal experience, and not really sensing it. And then you see different subtleties, different mannerisms, different things that I put into the script, and it's like, oh God, those are my words. And and it's kind of like, okay, fine. I cannot be totally dispassionate. So anyway, so we're watching this thing, and the first break, and I gather, and maybe Emoto and James, one of the hosts is known in the pinball community. At least Zachary and Joshua kind of knew this guy, or through somebody or something. Whether he was a pinball player or not, it's like they know him. Okay. So he's asking the question, and he has his buddy sitting on the couch talking to him. And he gets to a phrase and a word. I will try to do my best impersonation. It's in the mist. I turn to Ellen and I say, oh my, I think they're really drunk. I didn't know. And we watch, and it's like, and the guy, hey, yeah, like this and like that, and they show the car, and it's the wrong game. I mean, it's all sorts of stuff. And it was like, oh my God. And then all hell broke loose with people having seen it. I didn't realize how popular the show was. Being asked, did you have anything to do with it? Did you know it? No, it was a total and complete surprise. There is the Mysteries of the Museum on the History Channel, which I was aware of. and I was actually supposed to be on it, but we couldn't coordinate the times for when they were shooting in New York, and I was going to be in Florida. So anyway, all that aside. So drunk history, total surprise, did not necessarily get everything right. So
they were drunk.
Right. Which again, astounded me. And I did watch the Bobby Fischer one afterwards and said, I remember that. I remember 1972. Boris Spassky and Bobby Fischer, and yes, and doing play-by-play for a chess tournament on Channel 13 with Shelby Lyman doing the play-by-play. And it was just like, it was compelling. So anyway, to answer the second question, have people gotten it wrong? Yes, numerous people. I have been misquoted at times saying that it was luck. It was not luck. I've called it divine intervention, and that somehow I was connected to the plunger. People have called it a shot. It was a plunge, but yes, I'll take that. I did make any number of called shots during my play-by-play for the first two balls. No, I did not practice on the games. No, I did not pick the games, which people have commented on. Roger picked them. He knew exactly what he was going to play. He did it on the first ball, and he pulled the front and done, and what? No, and no. Two games were provided because D. Gottlieb was one of the main people sponsoring the bill and provided Rufus King, who was an attorney not only for the industry, but also for D. Gottlieb and Company, going back to the Kefauver Commission before the Supreme Court in 1956. So I knew that Mondial, who was their distributor out of New Jersey, would be providing the games. Possibly. Could have been Williams. Could have been Chicago Coin, you know. So when I walked into the courtroom, I saw that El Dorado was set up. I was like, okay, I'm familiar. I've played it. I said before, you know, Lee Goldbus had asked me. I was like, yes, I've played every game that's come out since 1966. So we're 10 years later. Yes, I can do this. It's not a problem. Bank shot was off on the corner. And it was off on the corner because you needed a backup. If anything were to happen with El Dorado, we'd be screwed. Right. You get one chance. So what has been reported is Roger had practiced on El Dorado. He was amazed and shocked and uncertain because it was going to be bank shot. Oh my God. He had never played bank shot or El Dorado, and he was surprised because he thought there were going to be different games there. So there's been all this speculation and whatever else. So what wound up happening after my testimony was I got up to play El Dorado, and the chairman basically said, not that game, because he thought that the El Dorado was rigged. So there was a recess.
And it was really bank shot that was rigged.
Yeah, right.
I'm just kidding.
So that was off on the side.
Gotcha.
There was a recess of about 10 minutes because there were TV cameras there and newscast and whatever else. So they had to reset everything, move it over to where the bank shot was going to be, and I played bank shot. And for people who speculated, as they often do, as to how and why I was calling shots, making shots, and I think because I was happy doing them repeatedly and describing, it's a pool game. So all of this has meaning in terms of why it's there and what I have to do. These targets correspond to different pool balls. I need to finish out a rack of pool balls. So I did that. And as I was pulling back the plunger on a third ball, I remembered encountering when I was doing research for the book in, of all places, Skokie, Illinois, in a bowling alley. And this is going to sound strange to everybody of contemporary vintage, not necessarily going back in time. It had a button to press to launch the ball. It was not designed for that to happen. I hated it. It went up, it kind of basically went, and it was like, all right, fine. And we took some pictures of the games and moved on. And as I was pulling back the plunger, I remembered that. And it was like, no way in hell, and I stopped. And I made a big point of describing the fact that, see all of these different indentations, these different lines, These are all so that a player can skillfully gauge how far to pull the plunger back to go wherever. It's a 5-ball game. There are 5 lanes on top. Unless there are some rebounding from the jet bumpers, I can only get those lanes out on top from the plunger. If I do this just right, it's going to go down the center lane. I pulled back the plunger, it went up, hit the rubber, made an arc, and came straight down the center. And that's when the chairman said, all right, that's it, seen enough. And I'm still wanting to play. There's a ball in play. I still have 2 more balls. Wait a minute. So that is kind of the story of it, and whatever the misconceptions or whatever else might have been. And when I've talked about it being lucky, I mean, look, obviously there was some kind of a sense, some type of a feel, some type of a whatever, where it was just in tune. People have asked, what would you have done if it hadn't gone there? Oh. And I said, I could have nudged. Okay. I could have nudged it, moved it over, whatever, little body English. If still it didn't go down, then my thing would have been, well, I didn't do it skillfully enough. And I landed into 3 instead of the 1. I mean, I would have come up with some type of pattern, if you will, to validate what I had attempted to do and be able to say, unless there was something that was god awful, and even back then I knew it never would have been god awful, or it would have been on either side of the lanes, like 2 lanes over, 3 lanes. There was no way in hell. I was going to be somewhere close. I knew that. So yes, so I called the shot, and that's it, or called the plunge, if you will.
That is a plunge. See, I didn't realize that. How did you get chosen to play this very significant role in New York history? Like, who called you and was like, it's got to be Roger that does this?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting when you say it. So I started doing research for the GQ article. I was on staff. We were working well in advance for the winter issue in 1975, so 74, because I was there from 74 to 82, and the majority of the time as managing editor. But I remember going to my first coin-op show, which was down in Florida. They had Duck Hunt, I think, on the floor. There was some kind of a shooter from Atari. I met Nolan for the first time. And it was like, okay, this is the end. I knew nothing about the industry. Not a thing. Did some research or whatever else, and we won't get into all those details. But anyway, people in the industry kind of knew of me, that I was, originally it was like, I'm doing a piece for GQ and maybe a book. Maybe, don't know. So doing the research for GQ kind of kickstarted it all, and kind of almost simultaneously was the book. And the opportunity to meet up with James, make an offer to him that he could refuse, but he chose not to, which was awesome, because we're 2 young guys. And it's like, let's just do a book about pinball machines. You're an incredible photographer. We'll go to Europe, travel around the United States. Come on, it'll be a great adventure for both of us. We get to play pinball. What more do you want to do? So the GQ piece was the first stepping point. The other was that I had started doing my interviews. So I'd already sat down with Harry. I'd already sat down with Alvin and Sam Stern and Herb Jones and everybody, basically. Michael Culmer's book was coming out. Harry McGowan did the first pinball book, oversized fellow from Canada. Beautiful book, by the way, but not a lot of depth or detail. And I am sitting down and really talking. I want to resurrect, if you will, the history from their mouths. This was critical to me. How did it all start? And who should I talk to? And who did this? And what? I mean, all of that. And Emoto, you said that you actually listened to at least to one of the interviews. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm this kid that doesn't know any better about anything. You know, tell me, let me absorb it all. And back then, to a much heightened degree than now, I have a photographic memory. So when you're sitting across from Harry Williams and he's saying, yeah, 1934, we did, Harry, wasn't it like 33? Oh, wait. Oh, yeah, you're right. I mean, I'm talking to them as if I was alive back then and living it with them. And all of that came about. The New York Times piece hit, which was the end of December of 75 in the Arts and Leisure section, a nice feature. And Danny Frank, who was the public relations person for the MAA, Music and Amusement Association of New York, contacted me and said that they were going to try to mount a campaign to legalize pinball, overturn the law. Would I be willing to come in and meet with Irving Holtzman and Ben Tchaikovsky, who were the heads of the MAA, and talk to them, and maybe testify in the case? I guess, sure, I don't know. So I went in and met with them, and they had heard about me. So to answer your question, I guess my reputation preceded me, that
Wow.
I was a hell of a player. And more importantly, that I had now published these 2 features. And
Roger,
in fact, I was working on a book.
How old were you, Roger, at that time?
About 27,
Man.
26,
Man.
something like that. That's a mere
Living
And
the
you
life.
changed the world.
You changed the world at 27.
and never really appreciated the impact until much later. I mean, I've said it before, and I will say it again to everybody. I would love to see a transcript of the testimony, not only for me, but from everybody, that overturned law 918. I've contacted the city clerk office. Didn't know if they have to have something on microfiche or God only knows what.
Yeah.
I mentioned before in Emoto, I know you said it would be great if the clarity was better of any of the interviews.
I'm sorry. The content is gold.
Yeah.
but I know that
Just gotta squint to
my
listen.
sons have questioned, is that really what happened?
Yeah.
Is that what you really said? I mean, or are you embellishing it? And this goes back to, whenever. And it's like, no, I mean, as best as I recollect, this is how it was. And, I would love to see that, because look, I showed you briefly in the beginning this folder of stuff that's partial for the movie. I have files that are like amazing files that, when I'm gone, we'll see what the boys do with it. And if it goes to, the museum,
It better.
or someplace, whatever. But I think that, anything that I was involved with, I testified in other court cases and did other things. I never thought, as I would have if it was the book specifically, and not necessarily me, to have gotten a copy of something. I mean, I have the transcripts of the Corpan case. I have other stuff that, let me see what that is, and whatever the research was that I did. And all of this remained so dormant for me, in all honesty. And it just came up the other day. I guess somebody posted, and I heard about it, about there's a different picture of me in the court case that somebody posted on
That was
Facebook.
Joe. Yeah, he's looking for a better version of it.
Well, and that was, I guess, in Replay or Playmeter magazine. I guess Austin and Meredith still stay somewhat in touch with things, and they asked, did I happen to have it? I said, I have every issue that's ever been published of them. And I went back in my files, and it was just like, son of a gun. I do have those issues, and more importantly, Replay magazine, I actually wrote the feature. So it's like, huh? So it was kind of crazy. It really was, because as I said, to me, and I don't want to sound harsh about it, but it was kind of disposable. And I mean that in a nice way. It wasn't anything that I kind of felt ownership to or held on to. I mean, that was a period in my life where I did something that was kind of neat. And yes, I mean, it benefited a lot of people, but I never took the time to think about, number one, the impact. Number two, how lasting the effect has been. And I kind of mentioned this early on when we all started this marathon way back when. My apologies for being so wordy. But, I'm so humbled and appreciative, and truly, the fact that, there is this legacy. I mean, look, and James, you pointed it out. I've had a very very, very career. I've accomplished a lot of things. I have a lot of notoriety in some other areas. And, the one thing growing up was I always wanted fame with anonymity. And in some respects, at least outside of pinball and outside of another area of my life, I have that. I can go to, I can't say this because it's happened at different points in time. I was going to say I can go to a movie and nobody bothers me. I can go to a restaurant and nobody bothers me. But there have been those times
Can't
where
go
I've
to
been
an arcade.
someplace and somebody, it's like, oh, Roger Sharpe. Oh, hi. I mean, I remember being invited out, and I was with Greg Ferris, so he can attest to this. We were in Amsterdam being taken on a tour, and in the red light district, there was Jean-Paul took us around with a friend of his who lived on a houseboat. And he wanted to show us, and not the red light district per se, wanted to show there was an arcade because there were some games. And it was like, oh, cool, sure. Because as we went down the boat, I saw someplace, and in the front window, kind of very similar to one of the pictures that James took in our book, there was not the person playing, but there was a KISS pinball machine. He was like, wow, are there any other places? Sure. And we went into this arcade. I had to play. I put a guilder in or whatever the money was. It was a taxi. And they're standing around, and I'm playing, and this guy comes over. Oh my God, it's right. He was either the manager, the owner, or somebody. I am in freaking Amsterdam, just taking this brief little stop to play a game. And it's like, really? Seriously? So as I said, I mean, I always felt, and growing up in New York, as a young adult, professionally, come on. I mean, wherever you turned or wherever you walked, there was always somebody. I still remember walking down Madison Avenue once, and Dustin Hoffman was coming the other way. And I made eye contact. I smiled, said hello. He said hello back, and he kept going. I mean, I don't want to intrude on him, but you took those kinds of things as just a daily occurrence. And, often thought, what's it like for somebody? And now with all the paparazzi and everything else that has occurred, you don't have any privacy. You have no life. And I've been fortunate to at least have a life, other than if I go to pinball conventions and other places, suddenly it's like, okay, all bets are off.
Wow.
And I always feel bad when somebody says, hi, can I take a picture with you? Yeah, I mean, stop.
Dude, you have you have a biopic coming up.
What other pinball people have a biopic about them?
It's like, I think your anonymity is going to go away now. So
yeah, probably.
Just be ready for it.
Much broader audience.
You're going to go to a movie and people are going to know you.
Yep.
You're going to have to shave your mustache off.
That's it.
Again?
You're going to have to do that.
Again,
I want to know.
Don't do it again.
I agreed for the last time.
So did the actors actually grow their mustache? Do they actually grow something, or do they have a prosthetic?
That's a good question.
Mike is not.
Every day I had to glue it on.
Mike is not able to actually when we first met, we talked, and I shared. Obviously, you saw some old pictures of me or whatever. As Ellen said, she's always liked my mustache when it was black. I said, yeah, those days are gone. But
gotten peppery.
Said, yeah, I could wait to do this film in 5 years and it wouldn't matter. With Dennis, I felt really bad because he also had a goatee. And I said, I have had goatees. I've had full beards and whatever. No, it's okay. I'll take it off. So Dennis's, and Mike, not so much. No.
Did you donate some of your actual whiskers to put in the fake one?
Really? No. Trim. That did not come up. I did donate some other stuff that is mine personally. So they do have some things like that. And there's a slew of Easter eggs in the movie.
Oh, cool. We love Easter eggs.
Yeah, it's going to be.
We love them mysteries.
Very, very special.
You'll have to do one of those commentary videos you have in the behind the scenes or on the DVD features where we just are listening to you narrating what's happening in the film and behind the scenes stories while we're watching it.
I watch those things all the time. I love those things.
It's my favorite.
You never know. We'll see how that plays out.
So when did you decide that a mustache was going to be when in your life did you start growing your mustache?
He didn't decide that. It decided for him.
It decided for him, yes. But I was just wondering,
chose him.
Was he like in high school and did he have that full mustache going, or did he have the wisps?
Well, my mother, bless her soul, thought that if I waited long enough, I would not have a real heavy beard. So I wasn't allowed to shave until I was about 14 or 15.
Is that a real thing?
Well, trust me, and I'll explain, and you can make your own judgment.
It's amazing tip.
Without being politically incorrect, I did look like a particular ethnic group in terms of the hair around my face, from my sideburns and my upper lip and what have you. And I wound up going to visit my sister in Pittsburgh. He said, we got to do something. So I shaved for the first time. And as I told my mother in subsequent years, see what good it did? I started growing my first mustache when I went away to college. I came home for Thanksgiving, got grief, and took it off.
So your wife never... Okay.
Went back to school, grew it again, came back on Christmas. So it was on and off during school because my mother didn't approve and whatever else. But there came a point in time during my college years where it was like, the heck with it, I'm going to just grow it. And I actually had long hair. I've joked about it in the past that if I knew that the picture of me playing in the courtroom would have been in the book, I would have gotten a haircut. But anyway, the mustache became, I just enjoyed it. And I think a lot of people back then, and maybe they still do, you grow facial hair to make you look older or to cover up some imperfection or whatever. I did it because I couldn't shave there. I always kept on cutting my lip with a razor.
Yeah.
And then I got lazy and grew full beards and whatever else. Ellen, I dated Ellen for 5 years before we got married. She had never seen me without a beard. I had a full beard. And at one time I had what I called my old man in the sea beard, which came down to here, all the way down straggly and whatever else. And then, so I had the mustache for 31 years, 32 years. And I was down in Florida to visit my mother and decided to do a treat. Had her sit down in the bathroom in the house and proceeded to take off my mustache, much to her laughing and just rolling. And oh my God, and there's my clean shaven son. Finally, look how handsome you look.
There's my boy.
And my only comment to her was, I said, whatever happened to my upper lip? I used to have one. Oh my God, I don't remember. So since then, I have taken it on, kept it off. Charlotte, my gorgeous granddaughter, likes Pa with a mustache. So it's like, okay. So I know that somebody posted something some years back where there was some kind of a vote or some kind of God only knows what. And because they caught
pinball
me.
Degenerates.
Okay, they caught me playing pinball at a trade show and I didn't have my mustache. And it was
no.
Which Roger do we like? And I guess.
That was the This Week in Pinball article. Yeah. Well, because Roger with a mustache or not a mustache. But then also in the Pinball Degenerates group where you are our hero, every year Joe puts on August 1st, which is our official National Pinball Day. Happy birthday. And the competition is who can dress up the best as Roger Sharpe and have like the best Roger Sharpe mustache, and then people vote on it. That's what we do every year, by the way.
Adam Chrysler, I don't want to pronounce it the wrong way, from North Star up in Montreal, had done the wig and the mustache and whatever for a Halloween gig. And Ellen and I actually went up. They contacted us because they had the law was being overturned for them to still keep their pinball place. I don't know if it's still in existence, but he was wonderful. And yes, he donned it. And I have to admit that a couple of years back for Halloween, I dressed up as myself. I got a wig, I had the mustache. I got the sport coat and the shirt and the tie, and it was like,
hey,
hi, here I am.
You are well dressed in all the older pictures. There's no doubt about it that you always sported the tie and the coat.
Thank you.
Always looks dapper. Maybe the hair was different lengths, but that was a generation thing.
Yeah, no, trust me, different color.
It happens to us all. So
awesome. Well, I mean, we have so many questions coming from the chat, but we will be here all night.
Let's try to bolt through a few of them.
But just so really quick, fun ones, because these were asked kind of in the beginning of the chat, but we were saving it for later. This is the creative side. So, very important, Roger. If you were to be in a soapbox derby and had to use a pinball cabinet as a car, which pinball cabinet would you choose? It's a question that comes up every time we do one of these episodes. So.
That is such a great question.
You know what? I'll make it easy on you. I actually have somewhat of a piece down backup Stingray in my game room downstairs, so I'll use that cabinet.
Nice. Awesome. And then another question, that was a great answer, by the way, was
thank you. It's actually true.
Outside of pinball, what other hobbies do you have?
Golf. I have ruptured discs. I used to bowl. Sports were really big when I was growing up. I got roped into playing in a softball league and blew out 2 hamstrings a couple of years ago. But golf is one of my passions. Absolutely.
That's awesome.
So whether it's a white dimple ball or a steel ball, yeah, I guess there are things with ovals, but love tennis. Love tennis. Reading I'm big on reading, and just being somewhat lazy.
Are you a fiction reader, or do you what kind of reading do you like to do?
Right now I'm finishing, I think it's No Time for Mercy by Grisham. I'm getting ready to read Candace Millard. She did a fantastic book on James Garfield. And I bought 2 more books from her. One is on Winston Churchill. Another one is on Theodore Roosevelt. So that's on my list. Matthew Riley, Nelson DeMille. So I guess a lot of fiction.
You ever think about writing a fiction-related book?
Sure.
Okay. Answer that question. On to the next. What else we got?
Okay, going back to pinball real quick. Do you have a favorite license you acquired, but that wasn't made?
Oh, wow. Favorite license I acquired that was never made. No, number one, they were all made. So that is the answer to that. Everything that I went after and wound up securing, we made.
Was there anything you went after that you really wanted, but then you couldn't get the licensing for it?
Yeah, you were you really wanted Godzilla or something, you didn't get it or whatever, because somebody else was competing for it?
Yeah, no, I actually wanted the original Batman back in 1989. Actually, before then, Ninja Turtles in 87, before they became Ninja Turtles. Because I met with Eastman and Laird at a licensing show, my first licensing show in 87. And Williams didn't want to do it. But
the comic book or the film?
No, there was no films then.
Yeah, it was just the comics, right?
Comic books. Yeah, I mean, they had not broken out yet into the mainstream. Yeah. But the original Batman, I tracked it down. It was Warner Brothers. Wanted that. I thought it'd be a good license. Python Angelo, bless his soul, poo-pooed it when he heard Michael Keaton was going to be Batman. He was like, no, I do not want that one. When he heard that Jack Nicholson was going to be the Joker, suddenly he was like, yes. I wanted it, but I had a philosophy, I still do, that there are no real advertising budgets for pinball, let alone for video games. Point up. because you can't reach the end user. So, I mean, you're left basically business to business. You're doing trade advertising. You're going through your distributors. So you're one step removed. And if you can, you do some outreach to locations, chains, or whatever else, and maybe they'll do something where you're going to be highlighted. So the conversation I had with Warner Brothers was, okay, so what can we do a machine giveaway? Can we do whatever? I mean, offered a range of things. And it's like, nope, not if you're going to show the likeness of Michael Keaton and Jack Nicholson on the back glass. Okay. You can show them from the rear. Okay, so what you're saying is, I'm going to have the back glass, and I'm going to have the back. I'm going to have the back of a cowl. I can do comic book images, just as long as it doesn't look like them. And it's like, then no. So I turned that down. Obviously, Data East wound up taking the license, and that was fine because they didn't have the same requirements that I had. So that was something that, I wanted to do. I guess the one that I had the most fun with was the first one, which was Elvira.
Yeah, which is still going. That's
still going. Yep.
Yeah, that's a big thing.
And Cassandra was amazing and wonderful, and Dennis and Greg were phenomenal, along with Jim Patla and others on the team, and it was a hoot and a blast. So yeah, I mean, to answer the question, there wasn't anything that I ever went after that I couldn't get. Are there things that I would like to see? Yeah, obviously there are, but whether or not it's practical and realistic for it to happen, and I am doing work, so yeah.
How did you tap into your licensing? You said there's conventions you go to, but how did you know? Was it just your understanding of popular culture of like, oh, Batman's going to be the next big thing? Or how do you know what a good license would be for a pinball game? That seems like something that you feel.
All right, so the embryonic beginnings. I'm living in New York City.
Okay.
I heard that there was something called I used to go to Toy Fair and Camera Show.
No, we went 2 hours without him dropping the call. I was like on the edge of my seat the entire time, being like, please, Zoom, do not mess up. Because on all of our tests, it was very choppy, and it was like, man, I can't believe it hasn't frozen yet. Oh, we got it. You're back.
You just got me back. So, 1987, I hear about something, whether or not it was on the news or in some publication of some sort. I heard that there was something called a licensing show, which of course piqued my interest and curiosity. It was being staged at the Hilton in Midtown, and I was like, okay. I still had press credentials, and I was like, all right, let me use these outdated, antiquated press credentials and see if I can get in, because it was only for the trade and for the press. And walked in, and it was like, wow, all right, so here are these various companies, studios, and whatever else, and they're pushing stuff to become a toy, some betting, some God only knows what. I mean, I knew licensing from my days at GQ and what had happened in the fashion world, where Gloria Vanderbilt's name was on, every girl's ass on their jeans, or Calvin Klein had a particular look, or Ralph Lauren.
Yeah.
So I knew that stuff existed.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I did not know that it was called licensing or anything. It's just, hi, they're doing this and what have you. Duncan Hines has a cake mix where you get M&Ms in it. Good for them. So I'm walking around and I'm looking, and it's a small show. God. And at that time, I was approaching Williams specifically. I had a game design. I had an idea, which is going to take us far afield, so my apologies. I wanted to do a consumer magazine.
Oh.
And I wanted to do a consumer coin-op magazine. I had taken over the editorship of Video Games Magazine, and it crossed over into doing a lot of arcade stuff. And I had done things for Electronic Games, done stuff for other publications, covering the industry, along with still writing for Playmeter, Replay, Cashbox, Bending Times, as well as doing other stuff for other entities, newspapers, magazines, and whatever out in the outside world. And I thought that there could be a unique opportunity to do a consumer magazine, give away games, do whatever. I had worked on a corporate newsletter for Aladdin's Castle. So I already knew kind of like a structure as to what I wanted to do. Having worked with a small publisher, I had already been out to Effingham where the printing was done for a magazine, had done paginations and layout, had gone with advertisers. I mean, I knew all the ins and outs of publishing and thought, well, let me produce a premiere issue and see if maybe Williams, because I had a good relationship with Mike Stroll back then, if they would be willing to put magazines into every machine going out the door to distributors. And then at location, there would be whatever I was calling it, this magazine for free premiere issue. And by the way, now you can subscribe. And I would get advertisers to help fund it. I knew distribution, so I could get newsstand. I knew I could get readership. So I put together a full proposal to present to Williams. And not so coincidentally, around this time, I am going to the licensing show. Willow was going to be a huge movie. And I thought, God, that looks really good. That's interesting. That could be a good pinball. Nah, it's a little bit hard edge. I don't know. Walk over another booth, Disney, and it's like, Who Framed Roger Rabbit? Oh my God, that looks incredible. But I don't think that would be a good pinball. Look at what Jessica looks like.
I would buy both of those games.
You can't do that on a pinball machine. No matter how sexy the Bally games were from way back when with Dolly and everything else.
No Jessica Rabbit.
Right. And I said, plus I didn't know how easy or difficult it would be to work with Disney. And then I just made mention before, wound up going over to another booth, and here are these two young guys. And they have this strange little comic book that I knew nothing about. I mean, literally, it was like this little pamphlet called Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And it was just like, God, that's kind of cool and neat. Maybe something like that. And I met with Surge Licensing, who was representing them, and they were talking about they're going to look for a publisher to get an actual comic book going, and they want to talk to toy companies, and it's like all this grandiose plans. And it's, would you guys ever consider? Sure, we would do a pinball. Oh, let me see. So I remember making a trip to Chicago thereafter, and sat down. It was with Steve Kordak and with Kenny and Neil and whatever, and it was just like, hi, here is the magazine pitch. Would you guys be willing to distribute or whatever, and maybe even buy a page or two? I just went to something that's called a licensing show. Go figure. And Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Now, what was interesting, again, knowing nothing, there was a gal by the name of Louise Riley who was there representing Lucas for, obviously, Star Wars, Indiana Jones. And it was like, would you guys ever consider, like a pinball machine or something? And I was thinking, not necessarily for me, per se, for a game that I would design, because I always designed from the ground up, meaning I already knew what I wanted as a theme. So Sharpshooter, I knew was going to be a Western. It was going to be my ode to High Noon.
Yeah.
I'm Gary Cooper and whatever. So I knew that with Cyclops, what I wanted, the village is burning down and I get to play Zelig because there I am on a horse rescuing Ellen from the Cyclopses. So all of that. Barracora, a totally different story. We don't have to touch upon that. And Stingray, I wasn't involved with that other than just the design of enhancing and making suggestions, which they wound up incorporating. So anyway, so with Louise, it was like, sure. And I said, I don't know what kind of money it would be. I don't know, like $10? Because she said there's royalties and there's guarantees. She was explaining. I mean, I'm learning right there on this conversation. $10 maybe, I guess, for a game, maybe, I don't know, 20,000. I knew what production was. in terms of number of games that could be built, maybe $20,000, $10,000 for guarantee. Oh no, it would never be for that. And I said, well, here's all these other companies you could call. I think I'm within boundaries. I don't know. And I hadn't talked to Tom Neiman in ages, but I also knew that, Elton John had done Captain Fantastic for 9 pinball machines. So I kind of knew what the prices had been 10 years earlier plus. So I kind of had a range of things. Didn't know that it was called licensing. All I knew was he was meeting celebrities and getting stuff and doing things for pinball. He was the guy that really, kind of set the standard for anybody and everybody, myself included. So that's how I kind of got started. And it's interesting because I'll go back to what you had asked. When Kenny and Marty called, I originally thought that they were calling to say yes to the magazine, maybe yes to the game design, because I had done Barracora previous. I had a 3-game contract. Time is a wasting, guys. Or maybe they want me to follow up on Ninja Turtles. And instead, they made me the offer to come and work for them. So again, did not know anything at all. And I've tended to define my life as being somewhat less apprehensively fearless in terms of my naivete and my ignorance, to be willing to go in and ask questions. Whatever. And Lola, you mentioned you listened to one of the interviews. Mm-hmm. I didn't know anything. And tell me your story. What happened in 1935? What did your dad do? Who was your dad? That's David Gottlieb. Oh, okay. Herb Jones. So what was going on with Ray Maloney? Tell me. So and I'm taking notes, and I have my tape recorder going, and I'm listening, and I am trying to absorb everything. My main purpose, and maybe it also holds true for licensing, was I wanted to know as much as anybody else, so that at least I could speak somewhat coherently, somewhat professionally. So for licensing, it was the same. Whoever I was talking to, I mentioned before about Batman. Oh, so that's how it works. Okay. And I wound up getting the license for Bugs Bunny, which I know many people hated and whatever else, but it was a great experience to be able to say, okay, what do I get? And become more knowledgeable with each and every license going forward, and to kind of know what the processes were. Where are the touch points? What kind of contracts am I dealing with? What kind of rights do I need? God, I need music too. Okay. How do I go about that? And you wind up going each link in the chain. And now after 35 years, I've become somewhat attuned to it across a variety of different types of product. So, anyway.
So what happened to the magazine then?
It kind of just fell by the wayside.
Bring it back.
The closest, truthfully, was when Stevie allowed me to do the
flip side. Flip side.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yep. So that was all me, and I came up with whatever name. So you'll see in there, I think that there is a Joshua Nathaniel or a Zachary Lucas or whatever. It's combining the boys' names. Because I wrote about 95% of the magazine, and my friend Michael Kanarish, I think I even attributed some stuff to Steve just because. So we did the pictures and all the rest of it, and I wanted that to be, we're going to highlight different games, highlight obviously leagues, different competitions, highlight the players individually, and it was kind of like modeled after what I did for Aladdin's Castle.
Nice.
To create this kind of network and whatever else. And I thought, well, we'll start off small and we'll build it. And I know enough printers. At some point we'll go to color, and then we'll start charging money. We're going to do a PAPA card, so that you have to be authorized like a bowling card, a BPA. So you're going to pay a $5 per year dues, there was a way to generate stuff and to start on a very small basis, but that was going to become the foundation for a consumer magazine, realizing that Williams wasn't going to put it in. whether or not now I was close enough. The distributors are not going to even look in the box. I'm screwed. Nobody's going to open it up, at least to get to the cash box. They're not going to see the magazines. It's ill-fated. I'm going to print up 100,000 magazines and maybe 1,000 will get out. And, so I saw there being a better and different approach. And then obviously with the flip side, we kind of stopped.
That's wild, because when you were talking about the magazine that you wanted to do, like just yesterday, actually, I was flipping through a Flipside magazine that I found at Project Pinball's office. Wow. And I found like an old Marco ad, full page ad in it too. It's like fax us now. And I remember looking like, who actually made Flipside magazine? And I couldn't like find any names that I really recognized. So you were using aliases for that.
Absolutely.
Amazing.
And worked with an Instaprint place and elsewhere that I had ultimately eventually worked with to create the first Mortal Kombat comic book.
Cool.
So there was that, and then wound up doing a newsletter that I created for Williams. That was a trade publication just for distributors and operators. So yeah.
That's so cool. You play such a huge role in pinball, and you're just like, I'm just the dad of Zach and Josh, but really they're the sons of Roger Sharpe.
Yeah, there you go.
I'm the father of.
There's something to be said though too of your skill that you bring to document and write all this stuff down. This is why you're important, Roger, is that not everybody can interpret what they're experiencing visceral through playing games and experiencing this kinetic art called pinball, and then share that with other people through words. That's a powerful thing because it's been documented, it's written down. You can then see it later. There's a record of it. This shows, that's if you do it long enough for a long enough period of time, people will respect you. And I made that comment about artists. If no matter what the art is, if you keep doing it, people will understand and respect you. So great work.
I've been around long enough, I guess, now.
That's pretty much the Now I tried to make it nice, but that's pretty much what it is. Yeah.
I'm now one of the elders.
Get your street cred.
You got your street cred. Yeah, exactly.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Roger, for all of these amazing stories. Everyone's like, we need to bring Roger back and get more stories, so maybe when the movie comes out, we could bring you back again.
Sure. If you guys will have me.
Absolutely.
Duh.
Let's make this a weekly thing.
Yeah. this week's story from Roger. We just have to write it down so we can use it later.
Yeah, so let's do a raffle.
Yep.
And this giveaway raffle is for everyone that has been participating in the chat. Anyone that asked a question, whether or not we got to it or not, I'm pretty sure, Roger, you answered a lot of great questions that happened.
That's a lot of people in the raffle.
We have a lot. So letting everyone know that if you didn't already know, John Chad just put out a new amazing graphic novel called Pinball, A Graphic History of the Silver Ball. And you can see down there is Roger and part of the famous day in 1976 and a couple of other really beautiful images. And Roger, do you want to talk a little? Do you want to promote John's book, because you kind of played a little role in it too, right?
I did, and I just think it's fantastic. I know that I wrote something for the foreword. I put something that I guess they printed on the back cover, or God only knows what, but I was blown away, not only by his artistry, but more importantly by his distinctive look pouring into all aspects of the world of pinball.
Really?
Yeah.
From the start until now. I mean, it really is comprehensive. and marvelous. And I can't say enough good things about what he achieved and how long and laborious a project it was. I mean, he deserves any and all accolades from everybody. And it is heartfelt that I say it, because it is really a seminal work.
How many pages is it?
It's a thick book.
Is
it
it thick?
Book. Yes,
huh?
It is.
That's a lot of illustration.
I was going to say, did you get your copy yet?
I did. I was just looking. I don't have it close by here, but I will say to you that it is something viscerally right for the eye, just based on the art styling and everything else. And I say that with all due modesty, because I know that he has done a caricature or drawing of me in there as well. It's part of it, but I think just everything, and talks about, tips on how to play. A lot of the things that I incorporated into my book, but he's done it in such a fashion that is just really marvelous. And I know that, graphic novels these days, where it's much more pictorial rather than literal in terms of writing, he's been able to kind of manage both in a way that is not overly jarring to an old person like me, where I can follow, along the path. But I recommend it. I think anybody who has any type of a pinball library of books or wants to start one, this needs to be part of it.
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure. It goes next to your book, goes next to the omnibus, and the pinball encyclopedias. Super beautiful. So one of y'all lucky people are going to win one tonight. I'm going to spin this wheel, and let's see who the winner is. The wheel is spinning. You can hear it go around, and it looks like our winner is Mango Slice. Congratulations, Mango Slice, who asked very nice questions today too. So congratulations, Mango Slice. Send me an email to marcotv@marcopinball.com with your shipping address, and we'll get that book to you. That's awesome.
By the way, I love that. I love your moniker, Mango Slice. When I saw that come up, I was just like, what an awesome little moniker.
Yeah, his Facebook profile picture is actually of a mango slice, so I'm not really sure if this person's human. Definitely a fruit.
Vegetable or fruit, yeah.
Yeah. I like mangoes.
But he's got good questions.
Awesome.
Well, thank you very much, Roger.
You.
It was a pleasure to hang out with you and hear your stories, and we're really excited about the movie, and I hope you can come back and hang out with us a little bit more and tap into your wisdom. Are you comfortable with people, like, if they do see you at a show, to come up and like challenge you to a pinball game? Are you?
I don't know if it's called challenging anymore. Just come up and allow me to be totally humiliated and beaten. Sure.
No.
No.
I always want to see like how people, how if you're approachable from all these people.
I am absolutely always approachable. Yes.
Do you have any plans on making any public appearances at pinball shows coming up?
Interesting that you ask. I know that I owe Dave Marston a call. He called me today just to follow up.
Fantastic.
I will be going to Pintastic. They've invited me out.
I need to go.
I understand, at least from his voicemail, that I am tabbed to be the Saturday night speaker, which I guess is June 25th. But I will be there for the entirety of the show. And if it is something that I'm up for, which it probably will be, because as somebody said recently, and I will say this without, again, wanting to get into too much depth and detail, there is still some sense of vanity and ego when it comes to my playing ability. Somebody was nice enough at Pinburg. I was playing with him and whatever, and he said, look, Michael Jordan probably can't dunk anymore, but he's still Michael Jordan. Yeah. So don't feel bad. Okay. Because I just, I know how diminished my skills have gotten. Every once in a while, there's that moment. Unfortunately, it only lasts for a shorter period of time and doesn't happen that often. But that's my way of saying that if Gabe and the folks are going to have another tournament, I'm probably going to try to play in it and see what I can do.
It's all about your personal best. It's like you're a marathon runner now. It's not that if you just make it through the marathon, you're good. It's about your personal best. It's not winning.
Yeah.
Not winning the marathon. It's making it through the marathon.
And it goes back to what I was saying before in terms of Josh and Zach competing. I've gotten over that hump. I am somewhat embarrassed sometimes by how I play, but other times it's like, okay, I did okay. And the first Pinburg I went to, the boys were surprised when I actually qualified for like the second day. And I was like, really? And I said, yeah, I don't know what more I have in the tank. Tiger Woods was good for the first 2 rounds of the Masters. After that, it was kind of like, yeah, sorry, that leg is so anyway, yes, Pintastic is on the calendar, and whoever else may ever want to invite me, or if there's something close by, I'm more than willing to come by and do my thing.
Groovy.
Yay. That's awesome.
Anyway. Thank you.
Cool.
Everybody's clapping.
Everybody's clapping.
I don't know who they are, but
And just a reminder, everyone, that stay tuned. Pinball, the man who saved the game, the biopic about Roger Sharpe himself, will be out sometime this fall. And I just dropped a link in the chat to pinballfilm.com where you can enter your email address and stay up to date with the movie happenings from the Bragg brothers. So, Roger, when you talk to them, please tell them from the community, pinball community in whole, thank you so much for making us a movie. We are so excited, and we are so glad that you played such a vital and quintessential role to it, because we know now that the movie will be done justice, and we respect your time for that.
Well, thank you. You guys are great, and to everybody else who endured this, I appreciate it. And hopefully it was fun. So thanks again.
Oh, it was the best. Thank you.
It was the best.
All right. I'm going to put up this episode screen.
Until next time, we'll be back in a couple of weeks.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you, Roger, and thank you, everyone, and see you next time.
Take care.